Hello, welcome back to Animated Literacy. This is lesson number 70 from the Story Song and Action book. In this lesson, we're going to be learning about Sheriff Shadrack and the sound for shh, like this for shaving or shining shoes. And we're going to learn that he can spell it with his letter pattern of an S and an H. Before we do that, we'll do a little bit of review from our last lesson. In our last lesson, we drew pictures of things that have Abe's sound. And here we have Abe, and he's skating to the bay, so we learn to gesture his sound by making the wheel of a skate like this. So show me your skate. Put yourself on top of the skate this way. Go up the hill, and as you skate down the hill, go A for Abe. And we learned that he can spell it with three different patterns. He can use A blank E, he can use AI, and he can use AY. And so we drew some things that used each of those letter patterns after we put them into some foods. So let's do some of our foods again. If Abe eats a squash, what would he call it? Squish. Say that after me. Squish. Now let's try some of our other characters with the squash and see what other vowel sounds we can put in there. Here's Irving, and he's turning his scooter, and as he turns it, it goes so what would his squash say? Squish, squish. So say each one either with me or after me, or if you can, try to say it before me. Here's Ordy Orson, and she's ordering the store to send her some shorts because she likes to play all kinds of sports in her shorts. So she goes, or. Say that after me. Or. Now what would it be if she eats squash? Ready? Squash. Again. Squash. Here was Owl and Mouse, and when Grouchy Owl bumped his head, what did he say? Ow! So if we put that into squash, what is it? Squash. Squash. Here was Annie, and she's adding on her abacus. So if she eats the squash, what is it? Squash. Squash. And here was Ollie, going to the doctor and saying ah, so what is his sound? Squash. Squash. And that's the word in the sound in the real word. Here's Eve leaping over her green trees and making her squeaky E sound. So what would she call the squash? Squeesh. Squeesh. And here was Woody Woodchuck, and if his cookie hits him in the tummy, what does he call his squash? Squoosh. Squoosh. And here's Edgar Elf exercising, and so if he eats it, what is it? Squish. Squish. And here's Ichabod, and here he is itching, so when Ichabod eats the squash, what is it called? Squish. Squish. And here's Uncle Upton, he's up there in his umbrella tree, so point up, and what does he call it? Squash. Squash. And here's Old Joe Crow rowing his boat home. So when he pulls back on the oars and groans, what does he call it? Squoosh. Squoosh. And here's Lulu Moose wiggling her loose tooth. What does she call the squash? Squoosh. Squoosh. And here's Arnie Aardvark hanging from the high bar. What does he call the squash? Squarsh. Squarsh. And here's Ike riding his bike up into the sky at night. What does he call it? Squish. Squish. And we're back to Abe. What does he call the squash? Squish. Squish. Okay, well, let's take a look at what we did last time. Last time, we practiced the song Down by the Bay, and we talked about the bay. And then we drew some things that have Abe's sound in them. So here's the pictures that we drew last time, and I went back and practiced them again like I hope you did, and then I added some adjectives and some verbs to describe the pictures and to tell what they can do. So here's my gray hair, and here's the word hair inside my circle, so there's my noun. Here's the adjective pointing to the noun, and I labeled him a gray hair, and I labeled him a gray hair that nibbles, because like Nellie Newt, hares and rabbits like to nibble. Then I labeled his tail, and I put it's a tiny tail because they don't have very big tails, and the tiny tail twitches. So where can I find lots of words to label with? All the charts that I make after reading books to you. Then here we had our ape, and I labeled my ape a hairy ape, and he's standing up and he's stretching, so you could put stands or stretches, and he's wearing what? A soft red cape that flutters. So this is fluttering. Then we drew our picture of our bay, and I described the bay as being a small bay, and on the bay, and the bay glimmers, and that's kind of like sparkles or glitters. If the sun hits it just right, you can see it almost looks like diamonds or glass out there shimmering back and forth. And then the sail on the boat is striped, and it waves in the wind. So I put striped sail waves. And then here's a pail, and I colored it red, so I put the red pail holds because it can hold things in it. And then I went ahead and added a sand castle, and the sand castle falls because eventually when the waves come in or somebody steps on it, anytime you build something out of sand, it's going to eventually fall down. And then I wrote a sentence down here at the bottom, so I hope you wrote a sentence on your page. And my sentence says, "Things I saw at the bay." Now Abe has an awful lot of things you can draw, so I made up another page here of things that you might decide to draw that we didn't use in the lesson that have Abe's sound and his spelling patterns. So here we have a train and a cane. And in train, we spell the sound A-I, but in cane, we spell Abe's sound A-blank-E. And here we have tape, and tape rhymes with the cape that the ape is wearing. Here we have a snake and a cake rhyme, and the cake is on a plate, which rhymes with a gate. And then we have spray that rhymes with the bay that we drew. Here we have a snail that has Abe's sound, and that rhymes with nail. And here's a chair, and you could draw a picture of a bear to go with your chair because those rhyme. Then after we sang Down by the Bay, we made up some of our own verses for it. So if you have your paper, take your finger, put it up in the air like this, and point to the words and sing it along with me. Down by the bay, where the watermelons grow, back to my home I dare not go, for if I do, my mother will say, did you ever see an ape? So we put the word ape there. Dressed in what's he dressed in? Cape, down by the bay. And so then I added my pictures up here. So here's my ape dressed in his cape. Here's the bay, and I added adjectives and verbs, and I looked at my word charts to see what I could add to describe those, and then colored them to go along with the descriptions. In a lesson a little while back, I introduced you to this chart, and it says, don't be afraid to use big words with little kids. If they can say Tyrannosaurus Rex, they can say anything. So with our next page, I'm going to give you a chance to learn a big word. And if you learn the big word and remember it, everybody's going to think you're really smart. But if you forget it, you'll still do just fine in the lesson. So don't worry if you don't remember the big word. But it's kind of fun to just hear them, even if we don't remember them. So on this page, we did a different verse for Down by the Bay. And on this one, we wrote, did you ever see a hare combing his hair down by the bay? So we learned about two different kinds of hair. Now on this page, they're not spelled the same because the hair that is the animal uses A-blank-E to spell Abe sound, but the hair that I have on top of my head uses the AI pattern to spell it. So those two words, hair and hair, sound exactly the same, but they look different and they have different meanings. Brian Cleary I've shared with you some books from Brian Cleary about nouns and adjectives and verbs. This is a book that tells us what words that look different but sound the same and mean different are called. And he tells us those are called homophones. And so hair, that's the animal, and hair, that is the stuff on top of your head, are homophones. Can you say that? Homophone. What does homophone rhyme with? Rhymes with telephones. Then he tells us about a different kind of word that we learned in an earlier lesson. When we learned about baby Barnaby, we drew a picture of a bat that is an animal, and we drew a picture of a bat that you use for hitting a baseball. So those two words look exactly the same, but they mean something different. And so in Brian Cleary's book that's called A Bat Cannot Bat, he tells us that those kinds of words are called homonyms. That's a hard word for me to say. So let me try that again, see if I get it right. Homonym. You try that. Homonym. So a homonym is a word like bat that can have two different meanings, can sound exactly the same, and be spelled exactly the same. Okay, so if you want to learn those two words, that gives you a chance to do that. And if you don't remember them, no problem. Okay. So now we're going to start to learn about our new character today. And our story for today has to do with sharing. And so this is a Skybrary book that talks about people who share with other people who need food and need clothing and different kinds of things. Then we have a book over here. This one is a Skybrary book. This one is not. But it's a very famous story about three billy goats gruff. And this is about somebody who doesn't share. And if you look down here at the bottom, you can see that there's this mean old troll that lives under the bridge. And what does he refuse to share in his story? If you read that story, you'll find out that he won't share his bridge. He won't let anybody cross his bridge. But eventually, he's forced to share that bridge. So you'll have to read that to see how he goes about sharing. Now, people who don't share are often called bullies. And here are 4 books from Skybrary that talk about bullying. This one is called Frida Stops the Bully. And this one is about Bear's Bad Day. And Bear starts out being kind of a bully. But at the end of the story, he learns that he's a lot happier and has a lot more friends if he doesn't bully people. And here's another Skybrary book called Superhero, How to Deal with Bullies. And so this is a superhero with his Superman or Supergirl or Wonder Woman cape down here, and he teaches people to share. And this is about a bug who doesn't share, and it's called Attack of the Bully Bug. So that's an important thing to talk about. And Sheriff Shadrack's specialty is teaching people to share. So let me tell you the story about Sheriff Shadrack. In Shelltown, people all shared the shore, and people used to come to the bay and to the ocean at Shelltown, and they would collect seashells, and everybody got along, and everyone was happy until a bully named Shandy came to town. And here's a picture of Shandy. And when Shandy came to the town, he thought the beach should just be for him. Now, Shandy wasn't a very happy person then, and probably that's the reason why he didn't share and why he wasn't very nice to people, is he didn't think very much about himself, and he really wasn't happy at all. So here's Shandy pushing a vacationer, and lots of people like to go to the beach to vacation and collect seashells, and here's another vacationer, and he's worried that Shandy might come and shove and push him or his family. So when the town of Shelltown realized they had a problem, they called Sheriff Shadrack. And here's Sheriff Shadrack getting ready to go to work. And they said, Shadrack, we need you to come to Shelltown to teach Shandy how to share because he's chasing all the vacationers away. So Shandy arrived in Shelltown, and he had a very funny way of getting ready to go out and do his job. He put on his shoes, he put on his shorts, he put on his shirt, and then he got into the shower. Which do you usually do first? Do you get dressed first or get in the shower first? So he does things a little backwards. So while he was in the shower, he took out a tooth from a shark, and here's a shark, and they have very sharp teeth. And so he used that shark's tooth to shave with. Then he got shampoo that he used on his pet sheep, and he used that sheep shampoo not just to shampoo his hair, but to shine his shoes. Then he took out his mirror and he checked to see that everything was ship shape, and he was ready to go to work. So he took off, and when he went looking for Shandy, he didn't have to wait very long to find him. So here was Shadrack with his pet sheep, and here's Shandy. Well, when Shandy saw the sheriff, he thought, well, I'll just shove him too. So Shandy went up and tried to shove the sheriff, but what happened? No matter how hard he pushed, Sheriff Shadrack was so big and strong, and his sheep was so big and strong, they just stood there like a great big heavy post to a building, and Shandy couldn't do anything about it. So he decided, well, I'll just go somewhere else and find someone to push. But no matter where he went, all day long, everywhere he went, there was Shadrack, and there was his pet sheep. And now Shandy was getting really tired of not being able to push someone. So finally he said, okay, I'll try sharing. And so that's just what he did. And in fact, he discovered that sharing made him so happy that he opened up a t-shirt shop at the shore where he sold t-shirts to all the vacationers who came to visit. So if you go to visit Shelltown, be sure to look for Shandy, visit his t-shirt shop, and maybe even buy a t-shirt for yourself. So now whenever we think of Sheriff Shadrack, we can think of 3 different ways that we can do his sound. You can take and pretend to make a sharp shark's tooth, draw it along your jaw like you're shaving, and go shh. Or you can pretend to shampoo and move your hands over your hair like this and go shh for shampooing. Or you can take out a rag and reach down and shine your shoes with shaggy sheep shampoo and go shh as you're shaving your shoes. So now let's test that to find out if that's a consonant or a vowel sound. So here we have with our bell. So let's put it into Are You Sleeping? And what is Sheriff Shadrack doing? Let's use shaving. Are you shaving? Are you shaving? Sheriff Shadrack, Sheriff Shadrack. Shadrack's bells are saying, Shadrack's bells are saying, shing shong shing, shing shong shing. So was Shadrack's sound like the cheese? Did it stand alone, or did it have a partner? It has a partner because it has ing and ong. So what kind of sound is that? Consonant. So if we do our blowing big bubbles with bubble gum with his sound, what's it going to sound like? Showing shig shovels with shovel shum. 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 Now, like our other characters, he has a song. So let me teach you the gestures and the words for our song. So first, take your finger and pretend like you're shaving and sing this back to me. Sheriff Shad shaves with shark's teeth. So make your tooth like this. Sheriff Shad shaves with shark's teeth. Now take out your rag and put your hands up over your head and pretend to shampoo. Shines his shoes with sheep shampoo. Shines his shoes with sheep shampoo. Now show the water coming down in your shower. Showers in his shiny shoes. So you can point down to your shoes. Showers in his shiny shoes. Now he's shifty, but in a good way. Shifty often can mean that somebody's doing something tricky to trick you, but Sheriff Shadrack tricks people like Shandy into sharing, so he uses it in a good way. And a sheriff wears a star, so put your star like this and go, Shifty Sheriff Shadrack, Shifty Sheriff Shadrack. Now Shadrack has 2 letters to spell his sound, an S and an H. So how can we make an S? I can make like a C like this and then put another C like this, so I can make my S that way. Then I can make my H with my 2 fingers down and cross it this way. S, H. So try that again. S, H, S, H, once more. S, H, shine your shoes. Again. S, H, shine your shoes. Now show me shaving. Shave with sharp shark's teeth. Shave with sharp shark's teeth. Shower. Shower in shiny shoes. Shower in shiny shoes. Now show me the sheriff. Shifty Sheriff Shadrack. Okay, whole song once more. Ready? Sheriff Shad shaves with shark's teeth, shines his shoes with sheep shampoo, showers in his shiny shoes. Shifty Sheriff Shadrack. S, H, shine your shoes. Shave with sharp shark's teeth. Shower in shiny shoes. Shifty Sheriff Shadrack. Okay, let's try that with our words now. So while I point to the words, you make the motions and try to sing the song. Ready? Here we go. Show me shaving.
Sheriff Shad shaves with shark's teeth, shines his shoes with sheep shampoo, showers in his shiny shoes. Shifty Sheriff Shadrack.
Your SH.
S-H, shine your shoes. Shave with sharp shark's teeth, shower in shiny shoes. Shifty Sheriff Shadrack.
Okay. So now when you get your paper of Sheriff Shadrack, you can do your rainbow writing up over the top. And how does he spell his sound? With an S and an H. Then turn your paper over on the back and think of some things from your life that are kind of like Sheriff Shadrack's that you can draw pictures and write about. One of the most important things you can learn if you're going to have friends is how to share. So you might tell me about some things on the back of your page that you share and who you share them with. Maybe it's with a friend, maybe it's with a family member, or maybe it's with a pet. We have lots of toys that we share with our pet dog. So sharing is really important. If you've been to the beach, you might tell me about collecting seashells, if you found some of those at the beach, or digging in the sand. And we talked about a lot of those topics in our last lesson that you can also use for this lesson. Maybe you have met a bully. So you could tell me about if you've ever been bullied and what did you do to stop the bully, and were you able to stop the bully? So what are some things you can do if someone is bullying you? So draw a picture on the back of your page and either write a sentence or a story about it, or have your parent or your teacher help you write it, and then you can rainbow write over there. So I hope you enjoyed that story today. And in our next lesson, we're going to be drawing and labeling some things that use Sheriff Shadrack's sound. So I hope to see you then.